Hello everyone, Connor Whitmore here again with another video for you on the Nawtystep channel, and it's time for video 2 of 2019 Yearly Favourites Week as I bring you my top 20 albums in bass music from the last 12 months. Now I'm not gonna lie guys, I don't think it's been the best year overall for albums in bass music, particularly more so than previous years from this decade I would have to say. I'd love every year to make a top 50 albums video, but there are never enough good ones to fill all of those spots, which I've found to be especially the case this year. Having said that, I still feel there's a definite top 20 for me, plus a few special mentions that I'm excited to talk about here, revealing my list in the process. Important to state here that these albums aren't merely electronic, but mostly dark electronic music, or outright bass, in whatever form. This is why, for example, I couldn't include the Fox Stevenson album or the Manix album. Overall, at their heart, these albums, they're just not dark enough. And in terms of what constitutes as an album, where I can, I've gone off what the artist has called it, what they see their own project as, but they're mostly half an hour or more and 9 or more tracks, although there are a couple of exceptions. A couple of other rules, as with every Yearly Favourites video. This one includes compilations as well, both normal compilations and remix compilations too. Again, just one entry per artist or label for variety purposes, but you can have your own album and be part of a label compilation as well. That's allowed. Gonna run through the special mentions to begin with, then as usual work my way down from the top number, 20 here, to number 1, talking about them more as I go on. Lastly, and I will mention this again as with every Yearly Favourites video, this is solely my opinion. One opinion, I'm not giving any objective views here. It's about how they make me feel, my favourites of 2019, those that I've enjoyed the most out of the many albums I've heard this year. So feel free to voice your thoughts on my list in the comments down below, but also let me know which albums were your favourites in bass music from the last year. The best bit, let's get the conversation flowing. And so, ladies and gentlemen, here we go, my top albums in bass music in 2019, starting with the special mentions in alphabetical order. So, we have AMC with Energy, Extra Terror with Convergence 2045, John Casey with Flora and Fauna, LS Dream with Renegades of Light, Moxie with The Return of House Music, Audio Records with Issue 4, Posei with Cocoon, and Riot with Dogma Resistance. Coming in at number 20, we have a collection that I would call more of a mixtape than an album, to be honest, but one which I think is a much needed injection of fun to this list to kick things off. It's GTA with Good Times, Bad Times at Hard Summer. A selection of enjoyable tracks from a dance perspective, covering a wide array of genres from house to mumba, trap. You've got a couple of other producers in there as well. A lot of it told through a festival lens, which just makes for an enjoyable, upbeat listen. Electronic party music produced in an effective way. Yeah, it's bouncy, it's fun, as I said, and if you haven't heard it yet, I recommend checking it out. At number 19, we have an album that, I can't lie, I wouldn't have expected to put in my top 20 before listening to it and getting through the year, as it were, and that's World of Wonk by Monks. I find a lot of the production to be pretty punchy and nice on the ear. As much as he's derided for his cartoonish approach to rhythm production, it does produce some pretty good results here, I can't lie. Also really like how he tries things out on this LP, from bassline to mid-tempo, bass house. There are a few songs I don't like at all, but enough for me to enjoy it a fair bit as a whole. Swooping in at number 18, we have the one collection here that I think I enjoy pretty much solely for the definition of the sound throughout, with not a load of the ideas really wowing me, but that aspect of it, the sonic aspect, is enough for it to place here, and that is A Dark Machine by Shock One. No one song here that I love outright from start to finish, but it's consistently very decent, full sounding with enough experimentation across the 13 tunes. And at the same time, I wouldn't say there are any songs that I instantly recoil from. They're all just properly decent, which results in a really solid album overall. Yeah, that is pretty much what it boils down to. At number 17, we have the only remix compilation on the list, meaning I suppose that it's my favourite remix album of the year. Yeah, we will go with that. A seriously impactful and impressive one at that, and that is the Fatalism Remix LP from Levitate. The thing I love most about this collection is that there is such a respect for Levitate's dystopian mechanical sound through these 10 different takes on his originals, meaning that we get his delivery retold in a wealth of different ways, and all very truthfully and organically, which I think is how a remix compilation should be, right? Also, no standout tune here, it's just really solid as a body of work. So yeah, if you haven't heard it again, then definitely check it out. At number 16, the first label compilation on the list, and one that I have got more out of as I've listened to it again and again, realizing the design and setup of the compilation more and more, and that is This Is Mad Zoo by the Mad Zoo label. I just absolutely love the fuzzy electro theme running through this thing, very industrial and machine-like. Difficult to do that, I think, with so many different producers on show, but they definitely pull it off for the most part, covering a wide array of genres along the way, from down-tempo to D&B, breakbeat, mid-tempo and more, all told with this futuristic gleam to it as well, a mix of moods across it from start to finish. So yeah, it really is just top stuff. At number 15, we have one of the more colourful albums on the list. Not to say that it doesn't have its fair share of darkness to it though. Another that I've got more out of as I've listened to it again and again, and that album is No Limits by Modus. A real rawness to the production here. Second half in particular, I find pretty fucking good, and I do not say that lightly. A lot of bright stuff, but also enough darkness. Exactly what Rushdown are about, of course, as a label. Don't want to kinda pigeonhole it or reduce it in any way, but if you enjoy Xylence music, then this is an absolute must listen. I get enjoyment from it also in wondering just how good he could be in the future, considering how much I enjoyed this one. If he improves from here, then my word, he has big things coming. Following on from there, number 14, we have one of the more conceptual and abstract albums on this list. One that has taken a fair while for me to get to grips with, but which I'm finally understanding a bit and feel like I have a decent grasp of. And that album is music from Sleeping Beauty Dreams by Tice of Noisier fame. Weirdly enough, I actually find this album to be quite an uncomfortable, almost nervy listening experience, but I think you do just have to marvel at the design of it, the atmosphere established, the musical progression across the whole thing, the way it constantly keeps you on the edge of your seat, tantalizing, you know, kind of hanging in the balance, suspenseful, a real scope and breadth to it as well. And I'm excited to see where he takes this solo project next, which I think speaks volumes for how much I enjoy this album. Moving on from there, number 13, we have another label compilation, talking now about a collective that has very much become a fixture in my Album of the Year videos, and which I think will remain that way going forward. And that label is Interval Audio with Without God Season 6. Now, I will admit, I think before I've been more in love with the idea of Interval when you consider what they're doing for underground bass music, the community of it, the artwork to go with all of that. But this year, I'd say I've noticed a real improvement in the music itself, and this compilation was the most emphatic example of that. There's a lot of good stuff here, showcasing many different styles along the way, which just shows how much they are excelling at the moment, in my opinion. And I can't think of another label taking the underground by the scruff of the neck like they are in such a classy way. Yeah, Interval, long live. Coming in at number 12, we have the album that I think I'm right in saying is the youngest on this list, having come out only around a week ago, but it's certainly impactful enough to have left a real impression on me already, and that album is Belong by Vacant. I mean, what else can one expect, really? I started following his stuff properly last year, and with every single tune I've heard, there's such a definite concentration on delivering emotion and feeling. It's another collection of his staple, dark, moody, future garage design, with a couple of deviations here and there, not quite as heartrending as past stuff of his, but still has such a pull to it. If it had been released a little earlier in the year, then I would probably put it higher, having gotten used to it more. On the flip side, I think it says enough about it that it's on this list at all, having been out for such a short time. Okay, number 11, the final label compilation of the year, and therefore my favourite, and I feel happy to say that, even though I don't love this thing from start to finish, It's Alliance Volume 5 by Disciple Records. So yeah, there are a few duds here that I don't think I'll ever get that much from, but as a concept in itself, having producers from completely different walks of bass music collaborate is just so fantastic. I cannot mention that enough. Such a good idea. One that I would say more labels should do, but I think Disciple own that idea now. I don't feel like anyone else can do it. People always wonder what these producers will sound like producing together, and they went ahead and did it. Also, in my opinion, it's got some of the best tracks of the whole year in bass music. In Das Rhythm, Here We Go, We Don't Play, so a lot of good here as well, and it leaves me excited for what ideas they might have for Alliance Volume 6, but this one will really take some topping. Right, here we go, breaking into the top 10. There are some albums that you love, not because of particular songs in them, but because of a general vibe and aura running through them, those that envelop you over their course, and the perfect example of that for me from this year is Death of a Cult by Drevum. The vibe here being very deathly, deep, alienating, over a wealth of different slow tempo approaches, the kind of music to lull you into hypnosis and gradually leave its evil mark on you. A very surreal music, a nostalgic, hazy quality to it, mixed in with a lot of grisly, eerie, jarring design, with the odd uplifting moment sprinkled in, a hope that is always quelled pretty quickly. I feel there are a few producers out there who have attempted this style, but none have got it quite like Drevum. When it comes to running with a type of delivery effectively, this has to be one of the best from this year. After that, number 9, an album that I have really ummed and ahed about over the course of the year, and I'm still not sure how I feel about it as a whole, but definitely worthy of a top 10 spot, and that album is Transcendency by Phase 1. For me, albums are about experimentation, and that's where I think this LP really excels. Here we have him dipping into D&B, mid-tempo, trap, and more. That ambition is its biggest selling point. I also love the range of vocals we get here, the heavy metal theme running through it. A lot of the percussion is really clean and emphatic as well. These things make this album brilliant, but there's also enough generic stuff on offer to ensure that it isn't quite a top 5 or 3 collection for me. Ideas not on the level of his stuff from like 2015 or 16, but still, as I mentioned, more than enough for it to be worthy of its top 10 spot here. Righty ho, here we go, number 8. Now, although all the albums here are undeniably dark and naughty, gotta leave some appreciation for stuff also that's a bit more jovial, upbeat and free-flowing, and the best album of that kind for me this year was Return to Jungle by Chastened Status. Put simply, this album does very much what it says on the tin. It's a very well executed tribute to jungle music, and one that delivers exactly what that genre is about over its 12 songs. The grooves on offer here, the album swinging and swaying from one track to another seamlessly, the vocals are well suited to the instrumentals, some of the bass lines are mad infectious, resulting in a lot of extremely catchy ideas to feast on from start to finish, and it's rare that you get a sweet mix of dark and earthy, and naughty and cheeky, and that is what we get here, in my opinion, a lovely album. Alrighty, moving on to number 7. Now, space I think also has to be left for albums that don't necessarily have a story or theme to them, or much necessarily gluing them together, but come across more as a collection of impactful tunes, a succession of bangers if you will, and one album that is great for that is Rhapsodious by Hugo. So many fantastic bass lines on this album, my word, really luring you in and making you feel the full effect of the LP and what it has to offer. Very dark and groovy, almost menacing I would have to say, covering a wide range of genres in the process, from house to mid-tempo, techno and more. Music that really effortlessly gets you in the mood and pulls you in and doesn't let you out. In the best way possible, I mean there is some truly irresistible stuff here, a lot of really on point percussion to match as well, makes for a real down and dirty underground listen. Proper naughty. Okay, number 6. Now some albums you struggle to comprehend a bit, kinda like a really dense stream of consciousness book. Every time you go through it, it takes you a few goes and you have to kind of divvy it up a bit, split it up into sections and whatnot. But that is its main selling point, and one album that I would definitely align all those things with is Nomad's Revenge by Billin. The scope of this album is pretty next level. I mean, I've heard some kinda similar stuff to it in the past, but I think even saying that would be quite a stretch. Nomad's Revenge is one to paint a picture and completely overwhelm you. The images it conjures up along the way of these huge spaceships going to battle in a kind of intergalactic void. Just so much depth to it as a piece of art that it's hard to put into words, really. My main drawback being that because it's so long, there are definitely moments where it does drag a little bit. Could have done with a bit of tightening up, both sonically and structurally. But if you want to immerse yourself in a world for an hour and a half, then this is your go-to. Breaking into the top 5. Similar to the Phase 1 album, here we have a collection that I've been quite undecided on for the best part of a year, with this having come out in February, but I've realised there's a lot to it that I absolutely love about it. It's High Street Creeps by Feed Me. A few songs here I have to say that I straight up don't enjoy, but more than that, there is quite a lot of material that I really like, and it's spread out over the course of the LP, which makes me want to go back to it, the layout of the track listing, if you will. The journey that some of these tunes go through is pretty mesmeric, the incorporation of different moods and rhythms and tempos, weaving them all together in quite an ambitious way. With more than enough very memorable moments, stuff to hang on to that latches onto your mind and dwells there. The vast majority of tracks here have at least one of those, if not multiple, which is the case with quite a few tunes here, I must say. In important ways, I don't think it ranks alongside his best material so far. Having said that, on a level of pushing his sound further and juicing the Feed Me concept of its melodic worth, if you will, I think some stuff here is up there with his best, so yeah, generally pretty on point. Moving onwards, number 4. Some projects, whether it be an album, EP, compilation, whatever, you find yourself marvelling at the production more than anything to do with it. The crispness, the sharpness of it, the definition. And one album that is exactly that is Analog by Misanthrop. This album is as tight, compact, and together a collection as I've heard in a fair while. Everything here is packaged in such an emphatic, powerful way that it's difficult to tear yourself away from, I can't lie. On top of that, a very genuine emotion and feeling running through it. Some of it warm and inviting, other parts daunting and scary, others more sorrowful and heartfelt. And even though it seems quite simplistic on an ideas level on the surface, I think there's a real richness to the LP that is quite a thing to behold once it clicks with you. Beautiful stuff, how the sounds are angled against one another, the management of space and timing, the drifting in and out of different types of energy. Just got a lot going for it, and I imagine that many people who follow this channel have not heard it, and I fully recommend that you do so. Okay, taking the bronze medal. Now, it's rare that someone takes on another alias, one that is utterly and completely different to their usual one, and comes out with such a well-formed album not that far into the project at all. That album is Provenance and the artist is Monuman. Also known as Emperor, of course, the debut extensive showcase of Monuman, and it's so fantastically deep and rich, with a very wide range of influences as well. Doesn't stick to one approach, which I think is great. A real blend of sounds here, a collage, a cornucopia, like wandering through a new environment for the first time and taking in everything that you see around you. It's magical in a way. Another where the mix of moods is clear, it's very aware as an amalgamation of ideas, and when to bring new elements in, it's so good for that. Quite mind-boggling at times, listening to how much he brings together. A lot of memorable stuff here as well, little touches more than general ideas, I would have to say. Stuff that really stands out, keeping you guessing throughout as well as to what mood or emotion it will delve into next. And to think that this is just the beginning of this project as well. Where could it go? It's very exciting. I don't know quite how he'll manage it alongside Emperor, but if it is more of the same that we've got here, then we can all be very, very happy indeed. Coming in at number 2, we have an album that I will have to admit, based on the majority of this producer's past stuff, I expected to like it a bit, but not all that much. But with each listen, I've realised just how much amazingness it has to offer. It really is quite astounding. That album is We Are Dust by Xylent. Don't get me wrong, I have enjoyed Xylent in the past, but I think here we get a levelling up on his production, both in idea and execution, that I'm not sure we'd got from him before. I think about moments in tracks like You Rise, Interluden, Particles that not only take you off your seat with how wild and unexpected the ideas are, but also how clean and stunning they are sonically. A lot of it is so melodically on point as well, incredibly vibrant music with a lot of feeling behind it. When you bring angelic vocals into that as well, it just makes it even more dreamlike and otherworldly, if you will. The world he creates as well, robotic yet full of hope, the different genres he dips into. Also not doing too much on that front, which I think is really important for the album. He just sticks to what embellishes the image of it best. The thing for me that stops it from being number one is that I don't feel for me there's a track that I love from start to finish and completely. It's an album of amazing moments for me, not whole tracks pushing it forward as an LP. Also, a couple of tunes that I don't think add to the world he's trying to create here and are somewhat superfluous, but bottom line, I cannot stress enough, there is so much good to this album, and to leave it outside of the top two would just not be fair. But at number one, now I really wonder if people have guessed up to this point which album it could be. I'm not sure if many people who follow the channel will have heard it, but it is unbelievable. It's really quite the album. I was gutted I didn't get to cover it in a full review, but I will get to talk about it a little bit more here than I did in my latest monthly roundup. And so now you might remember what it was. Lands of Delight by Alan Moore. Every now and then you come across an album that provides such a particular experience that you highly doubt anything else will ever be even remotely similar after that, and this album is exactly that. One where, as much as you could try to copy or mimic it, it would be extremely difficult to capture the exact feeling it gives off. A collection where trying to level up to it would be quite the futile action. An album that I still struggle to fully articulate in words, but to me, it's like an assault in the best way possible, constantly overpowering you, yet you love seeing how dark it can get. An aggressive beast that is ever present, lingering and looming at all times, waiting to attack. You feel dwarfed by it, which I think says it all for how imposing, mighty, and impressive it is as a wall of sound. More literally, it's a very compelling mix of classical influences, hard-hitting, thick electronic sounds, grand instrumentation, different flows and rhythms, swelling and contracting, harsh but never goes OTT, with a truly incredible patience in the construction of it, always a sense of impending doom hovering over you, and it does so well to create this sense of unease. It's like a horror film, a nightmare. It's an album I could probably talk about for hours on end, a real journey, and one that I can't wait to listen to again and again, which is the best compliment you can pay an album, to be honest. And so there we have it, guys, for the second video in the 2019 Yearly Favourites Week, my top 20 albums of 2019. Thank you very much, and as always, for tuning in. Be sure to leave a comment with your thoughts on my list, but also with your favourite albums of 2019. What are your picks from this year in bass music? Do you have a top 5, a top 15, 10, 20, whatever? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, then be sure to give it a big old thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell along the way so you can be notified whenever I upload a new video to the channel, and my social media accounts are linked in the description box down below. These are things you're gonna want to do in order to keep up with what's going on the channel this week. We've got the top EPs and singles to come later on in the week. Remixes came out a couple of days ago, so make sure you're locked in for all of that. And lastly, if it's naughty, then you know, guys, so be sure, as always, to keep it naughty and stay safe. And I shall see all of you legends in the next one, the top 25 EPs in bass music from this year, out on Friday. Peace out.